Hello. Uh, I don't see my camera moving. Uh, you have to excuse me for my lack of skill in this area, which I hope I can correct as soon as possible. Um, it would. I would expect that you would see and well, since the um, video will be very short, I will continue just with that photo of a pensive professor, I guess. One is to finish with a critique of Andy's um, destruction of Neil Young and Prince. And it's compared to all these 80s virtuoso guitar players. With few exceptions, all the 80s guitar wizards have a long blonde hair, or with few exceptions like Steve Vai of Italian origin, but definitely is a white crowd. Well, I think that disproportionately he destroys uh, mm, guitar players that aren't. For example, Prince and Neil Young, who's uh, First Nations. It would be an empirical question to see if that impression is true or not, just an hypothesis. Um, on the other hand, I would like to comment on a new aspect, which is the ranking of progressive rock drummers. And to me, the line between progressive rock and rock is very thin. I remember when this type of music emerged, we didn't call it progressive rock. We just call it rock. And in sometimes like ELP, symphonic rock. And in the even the previous and in my view more interesting group, Nice for Keith Emerson, that it was like a mix of uh, rock and and jazz, classical. It was very difficult to categorize. Anyway, my disagreements on the list are profound, and I'm going to list drummers that I believe uh, can play what's called progressive rock, and in some instances jazz, uh, in a way that's far more musically rich or engaging than um, uh, Rick's, I would say, a slightly Anglocentric approach. So for me, starting at number 10 would be Ron Bushy from Iron Butterfly, who in 1968, to me, was one of the first precursors of metal with Inadaga da Vida, and definitely of heavy drumming um, and progressive drumming. And that theme has elements of, I would say, free jazz influence, um, rock, and progressive rock as well, and uh, heavy rock or precursor heavy metal. And one of the particular aspects that makes it so appealing to audiences then is the length of the um, tune. If I don't remember uh, accurately, it should be about 17 minutes with a very long drum solo. A drum solo that capture your attention and that is quite melodic and that used to be appreciated by people who do not uh, particularly pay attention to drumming or like drum solos. So that's the reason why I put Rombushi at the number 10. And the end of the solo to me was epic in that context. When he goes back to the original um, rhythm with the hi hat and organ begins a slow um, uh, travel towards the theme of the song. That was uh, very, that solo was epic, at least from the eyes of someone in the 60s. And shifting to number 9, I would include Ansley Dunbar. And as examples, I would put his work with Zappa in I think the Grand Wazoo, and I think some other work of Zappa's, and his work in Ulrich's Berlin. In, for example, How Do You Think It Feels? I think that he could cover very well both styles, rock that's very close to um, jazz influences and modern classical music like Zappa's in what I considered his best work, Grand Wazoo. And although I'm not an expert and I haven't listened to many of Zappa's production LPs and so on, so in that sense, I'm a little bit limited. And in the iconic Berlin, which was destroyed by the critics when it came out, but has been revalued over time. Here we're talking about Ansley Dunbar, but Jack Bruce on bass, who does an incredible job leading tunes such as Men of Good Fortune, and brass section with the Brecker Brothers. To me, is one of the best rock. It's like a rock opera. Uh, and drumming, and after that, I would continue with drummers that are at another level of skill, virtuosity, uh, because they come from jazz, but they have done crossover a lot of times in records that could be considered progressive as much as fusion. And here I include the unique Vinny Colaiuta, who played a lot with Jeff Beck, but also with many other top fusion guitar players, including, I think, I may be wrong, but Stern, Robin Ford, and others. Um, Also, Steve Gadd, of course, and not only his work on the records of Steely Dan, which there were his drumming there was very popular at the moment, but his production is huge, and I think Steely Dan is very overrated, in my opinion, because there is a lot of plagiarism there. And I'm talking something that's the plagiarism concept is hard. It's not really copying the notes or the rhythm or the harmony. It's how you put what you add with your personality. For example, I don't think that Led Zeppelin were plagiarizing. They were creating another style of music. But I don't think the same can be claimed for Steely Dan. I recommend you to listen to Horace Silver Song for My Father. And then Dave Weckl, modern master, who's done and played with everybody, starting with Chick Corea, but then with many other fusion artists, such as Mike Stern, the giant of fusion, um, Dennis Chambers, after that, who can play with anybody, and he showed his mastery not only with P-Funk, Funkadelic, but with Mahavishnu orchestras, John McLaughlin, I would say John McLaughlin, not Mahavishnu, and Carlos Santana, and you name it. Then I would have the master drums at the forefront of a band in a leadership that was at the same time creative, propulsive, and um, rocking many times. Listen to Tony Williams in the trio with John McLaughlin and Jaco Pastorius, the Trio of Doom, which I don't think it was such a train wreck. I mean, uh, only in a section when Jaco Pastorius, who actually Andy mistakenly calls narcissist, which is sad to make this mistake, because narcissistic personality disorder is debatable whether it is at least there is not an evidence of biological treatment of distinct uh, neuropathology. So it sounds more like an insult, unfortunately. And that happens with some personality disorders that can be, say, described, but that's the the cause is not well understood. What he most likely had is, from what I read, and he had been diagnosed as bipolar. So what he did in his manic phase is not because he wanted, he was narcissistic or um, uh, uh, a question of personality of character. It was because he had this disease, and either His entourage was not knowledgeable enough to convey to him the seriousness of his disorder, or as it happens with many, not to do it. That happened with other star musicians and rock musicians. The name of Nirvana's leader comes to mind as a similar case. And then in the last three, and I would say, all of these jazz drummers from Vinny, they all are so unique and so amazing that I feel ashamed to rank them. I'm not really qualified, so I'll put them all in a single basket. Next is Billy Cobham, who everything has been said by Andy already. He's the drummer of the fusion era, and his skill, timing, flexibility, and creativity is unparalleled. And here I have a huge agreement with Andy, which is strange. I love crosswinds. Billy Cobham, in particular, the drumming of the first tune, The Pleasant Pheasant, is out of this world. And finally, as number one, I include my personal favorite drummer, which is Jack DeJohnette, and his work with Miles, not only in the studio, but also live, as in Live Evil, where he shows that you do not have to be hard when you play the drums to convey a sense of heaviness. He's extraordinarily skillful in conveying the strength of the music of Miles during, for example, that section where the person who's using spoken word poetry says, "I love tomorrow." Behind that, you feel the force of Jack DeJohnette, which I repeat, he's not pounding the drums, but he's propelling that dense set of musicians towards tomorrow. You can feel that, and he's just, in my opinion. So here is my take, and I would say I left out people like Simon Phillips, Bill Bruford, and Alan White, who were in the list of Andes, and others that I don't have in front of me. Oh, and of course, Carl Palmer. I would not put Carl Palmer in a list like Andy does. I don't think he swings or he grooves, or even if I'm not an expert in drums, I'm really surprised that Andy includes Carl Palmer. Maybe like Bruford, and he's from the UK. That's why that bias is recurrent in his list. But frankly, I totally disagree with that. And I hate criticizing musicians, but many brilliant musicians that do not get recognized when I see somebody who's completely, in my view, idolized without, in my opinion, and others who are jazz musicians, without enough um, evidence, essential, particular with jazz and rock. I, against my own tendencies, I have to say. So I don't think that Carl Palmer, the British member of ELP, even if he can drum very fast and loud, is at the same level than Vinny Colaiuta or Steve Gadd, Dave Weckl, and let alone Dennis Chambers, Tony Williams, Jack DeJohnette, or Billy Cobham. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for listening and for appreciating this alternative way of looking at rankings with a critique that incorporates the elements and biases that I see in these top European and US music gurus. Oh, and I forgot, with regard to Rick Beato, who I tend to love as a persona, but I don't agree as much musically as with Andy. I think he forgets when he tries to explain why the emergence, and I think Andy also goes in the same way, the reasons why jazz became conservative. I think technology and economics played a part. For example, in the early 80s, when CDs became an alternative to records, and that meant that the old records that had been recorded in the at the beginning of jazz, traditional records could be resold with the CD, and people would go back and buy all this traditional jazz if they wanted of previous eras in a format that could be sold as appealing because it was small, could be convinced that would sound better, and that was an important element in the endorsement by the industry of the Marsalis, or that the Marsalis represents, and that could be defined by greater wealth that the majority of African Americans, an endorsement of and support of and identification with the US as a country, and considering jazz the classical music of African Americans, as it had stopped to develop as in the 70s when it went electric. And although Branford Marsalis didn't feel very well this mode, especially at the beginning, over time he actually even embodied that view more than his brother, who became a leading educator, a fantastic educator, and promoter of jazz. And everybody should be grateful for his work. at the Lincoln Center and elsewhere. Think, for example, his videos with children. It's one of the most beautiful proofs of the advantages of jazz as music uh, um, over, say, the European tradition. It is the rhythm and voice, call and response, the soloist interacting with the public in some ways through call and response or silences, but fundamentally the rhythm, the groove. And modern musicology has found that the universal appeal of music in all cultures is rhythm and its repetition. And well, that's also what Prince said. You know, something has a tune called Love of Repetition. In fact, in those videos with Wynton Marsalis, we see the kids being passive, listening to European classical type of music. And when he starts playing groovy blues, kids smile and start moving. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for listening.